Welcome to Bicycle Retail Radio, presented by the National Bicycle Dealers Association. This is where bicycle retailers, industry innovators, and advocates come together for real conversations about what's happening right now in bike retail, from cargo bikes to carbon fiber. Each episode explores the challenges you're facing, the opportunities ahead, and the people driving our industry forward. We go beyond the surface to uncover practical strategies, fresh perspectives, and authentic stories from shop owners who've been where you are. Whether you're navigating staffing challenges, adapting to market shifts, or looking for your next breakthrough idea, this is your community. Since 1946, the NBDA has been in the trenches with specialty bicycle retailers, providing education, advocacy, and connection when you need it most. Want to be a part of this community? Learn more about NBDA membership at nbda.com.
As an NBDA member, does the following opportunity interest you? Additional margin on inventory purchases negotiated by the NBDA exclusive to members. Competitive edge offering a unique trade-up option that leverages the value of pre-owned bikes. The ability to drive demand for new bikes and build long-term relationships with customers. Basso bikes bring increased average sales value and revenue. No minimum order quantities, industry-leading margins, no D2C selling by the brand, and US-based sales office and support. Interested dealers can capitalize on a host of additional benefits right now. To take advantage of this opportunity, visit bassobikes.com. That's BASSO bikes.com and complete the For Retailers inquiry form on the bottom right of the homepage.
All right, listeners, welcome back to Bicycle Retail Radio. I'm Heather Mason, NBDA Executive Director. This is our monthly news hour podcast powered by Human Powered Solutions. Each month, we break down what's happening right now in the bicycle and e-mobility industry. Human Powered Solutions is one of the most trusted consulting firms in our space. They work at the forefront of bicycle and e-mobility technology, supply chain strategy, and market intelligence. Their team has decades of experience shaping the products, policies, and innovations that define our industry. Today's conversation is one for every retailer, supplier, industry leader, and you should be paying attention to it. We dive into the biggest challenges and opportunities that impact bicycle retail. We talk about emerging technologies, shifting consumer policy, behavior, and market trends that are going to shape the year ahead. This is our first one of 2026. We're thrilled you're here. All of this insight is pulled directly from Human Powered Solutions' Bicycle Business Reporter. It's their monthly must-read industry report. So if you're not already subscribed, head to humanpoweredsolutions.com. We link in the show notes, and you can get signed up to get that reporter delivered straight to your inbox. Welcome, gentlemen. Nice to see you. Happy 2020.
Good to be here.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Heather.
Yes, I'm so excited. This reporter this month was just packed. It's titled Welcome to the Year of Uncertainty, which I have a lot of optimism, but yeah, the title like that, I'm like, and then reading the articles that dove right into it. So lots in store today for our listeners. Let's just get right into it, if you don't mind. Right at the top, the first article this month was your analysis of the Washington Post article, Bankruptcies Soar as Companies Grapple with Inflation and Tariffs. And you highlight how raising inflation and high interest rates and ongoing tariff uncertainty are putting serious pressure on import-dependent businesses. And also retailers, specialty bicycle retailers, who rely heavily on imported products. They're navigating this cautiously. Consumer spending is very cautious. So just with this article, maybe I'll just ask you guys, and Steve, this one might be great for you, but what would you say are the most important financial and strategic moves that retailers might want to be making as we look into 2026 to avoid becoming part of these bankruptcy statistics? We want to thrive, right, in this uncertain economy.
Well, I think it's important, and I think, Steve will have a comment as well, maybe, and Fred. We haven't seen this many bankruptcies because they surged in 2025. We haven't seen this many bankruptcies since going back to the period of the Great Recession, as it was called, 2006, 2008. Very quietly, because there's been obviously a lot of activity at the stock market level. Stock markets across the world are doing well, but underneath that, you've got a market where small business in particular has seen an increase in both Chapter 7 and Chapter 11 filings in the United States. And the same issues are occurring in Europe. Now, we don't know about Asia because we don't have quite the visibility for that. And so, to your point, I think that retailers need to do a couple of things. One, obviously operate with a business plan and be prepared to update that plan no less than monthly, no less. I would even look at it every 2 weeks, depending on how it's going here. The impact of tariffs has been slowly seeping into the markets and into pricing. We haven't seen anywhere near what we're afraid of seeing as we go forward into this year. We're not into the first quarter yet, but I can give you from the standpoint of a dealer's perspective. Back in 2020, the overall rate of tariffs on imports was about 1.52%. So if you took all of the volume done in import product and then took a look at the amount of tariff paid, it averaged out an aggregate of 1.52%. Year to date 2025, that was 10.65, 11%. So that would be added to the landed cost of goods in general across the whole of the United States. For 2026, that right now, the high end of that forecast is to add 14%.
Wow.
So I think that retailers need to look carefully at every price they're paying. Make sure that they understand in the agreements they've got with their suppliers that the supplier can't change pricing with a commodity or product that is ordered and in transit. That prices are known to the retailer and prices that are quoted will hold. In turn, factor those into the business planning. Retailers need to focus on both revenue generation and, more importantly, I think, profitability. Now, if they're only getting $1, it doesn't matter what the profit is on it. But if the revenue is acceptable from the standpoint of running that business, paying all the costs and making a profit, then in turn, the business plan has to look carefully at how those things are going to come together and work and to adjust them. Making sure that when you're talking to suppliers, you ask if the products are available. And if you're not going to have a markout, so that you can plan what you're going to have in stock and be able to run the business in a very I guess cogent manner, not hoping that product will come in, but knowing that product will be there, because I think there's going to be product shortages as the end result of what's occurring in this churn that's occurring in the uncertainty that is upon us relative to the import side. So A, a business plan, B, making sure you understand the cost of your products, and also working with suppliers, making sure you know that that product's going to be available to you. And Steve, Fred, do you want to add anything to that?
Well, Jay, I think you hit one of the primary things that I was going to talk about. Have a business plan or / budget and make sure that you look at it and measure against it. Now, you're saying every 2 weeks, and that's probably appropriate because of the level of uncertainty that is throughout the marketplace. If you don't do that, you hope, and we've said this before, hope is not a strategy. So you've got to be able to look at it objectively and make decisions and make changes on the fly. And if anything, I would caution against being overly optimistic. Cautiously optimistic, perhaps, but don't just assume it's going to get better or that the assumptions that you have made about the business will in fact happen. Got to take a look at the reality and what you're hearing from your suppliers.
I like that.
I would say I agree with what you guys are saying, and I follow a fellow that I think some of you know, name anyway, Scott Galloway. He's a professor and a business strategist, And so what you guys said, I'm going to put in a Scott Galloway language, which one thing I like about him is his colorful language. Um, he references, he considers business, at least in this one case, it's probably maybe not his overall philosophy, but look at it, it's a war. And I think Jay, you're a Civil War buff. You know that no battle plan survives first contact with the enemy, and that's so you have to readjust and on the fly make changes to your battle plan. And so his concept is the marketplace is the enemy. Your battle plan, you're going to war, plan and implement the battle plan, but until you meet the enemy, which is the marketplace, you won't know what's going to work and what won't. And so you have to be prepared to adjust. And I think it's a business basic. He has a colorful way of putting it, and I'm glad I can go along with you two guys in suggesting that.
Yeah, I mean, we are advising our P2 members, and we always have to have a budget to, make that budget be your North Star. But this year we're even digging deeper into it, as Jay suggests, each week looking at those numbers that what your goals were, how you're actually doing, and then you're able, when you're looking that closely, you're able to pivot and make moves to keep yourself on track. It's when you don't look at your financials, you don't look at how you're doing, and then you 3 months, 6 months later down the road, look at it and you're like, oh no, things went sideways. So really getting very close to those financials. And it's nice to hear our P2 members saying, we're excited to do it this way. We're excited to get our managers involved in making decisions and looking at how we're doing. And I think that's what it's going to take as we move through 2026. So great advice, gentlemen. And yeah, Steve.
One thing I would add to this conversation, Heather, is as these retailers make their budget, make sure they do a budget in a level of detail that they can measure. Again, too often we'll see people do budgets and their whole world views. And when it comes time to measure things, they really can't get down to the detail to determine what is working and what isn't. You may have part of your business that's doing really well that is masking a part of your business that isn't. And so you want to make sure that you have a level of detail that you can measure, right? That you can get the information back on to make adjustments accordingly to your business.
Yeah, that's really good, Steve. I'm glad you called that out. Taking a look, like, remove the rose-colored lenses and look at your numbers in a way that you can really get very radical about every single line expense, really examine that payroll. We have retailers who are even looking at their occupancy expense and negotiating with landlords or making moves there. So don't just expect you're going to have a 5% increase in sales in 2026 and that's going to cover your operating expenses. That's, that's not the right way to do this. Let's anticipate maybe even flat to no growth, and then we have a worst case scenario and plan in place. So we could talk financials all day long. I get excited about this, but I guess we should probably move over to tariffs. Probably something our listeners want an update on. So there was a supply chain management review article, the year of the tariff. It's clear that 2025 has been changed and tariffs have impacted supply chains. Even just the uncertainty has impacted the industry, impacting pricing, sourcing, liquidity. As Jay says, there might be shortages. So for our listeners now, can you give us an update on where tariffs are in mid-January 2026?
Well, at this point, we were waiting for the Supreme Court decision on the IEEPAs or the reciprocal tariffs. That at this point, they're working through their docket and issuing decisions on Wednesdays of each week. We had no decision on the tariff case this Wednesday, so we're looking now to next week. I'd hoped we'd have it, as you know, for the reporter and also for this session. So that would deal with one issue that is causing a great deal of concern. In brief, what's at stake here are the reciprocal tariffs that were added into the stacking of tariffs on a per country basis. And it ranges from, in the case of China, over 30% down to 15 to 20% for Asian and European countries, stacked on top of the most favored nation states tariffs, and in the case of China, on top of the Section 301 punitive tariffs. So all of that's still in place and churning. We're waiting for a Supreme Court decision that could very well strike down the emergency tariffs, or the IEEPAs. They're also called fentanyl tariffs. But the administration has already said they've got a plan B and a plan C, so that when the court does that, whatever it does, it's either left in place, or if it's struck down, they're going to replace it, the administration, with a plethora of additional tariffs that they're going to tack on to keep the rates up. But in that confusion, we're going to have to wait for what they're going to do if that's the case. And we've already seen big players like Costco already file suit because they want to get the tariffs they paid under these IEEPAs, the emergency tariffs, the fentanyl tariffs, reciprocal tariffs, whatever you want to label them. They want to get the tariffs back. That is going to add another layer of confusion, but it isn't going to really impact what the dealer is going to see, in that's internal to a corporation suing the U.S. government to get the tariff money back. You know very well that Bob Markevicius, who is our primary advisor in the bike industry, has told this group in the industry in a webinar back in last year, 2025, that we shouldn't expect to see any money, no matter what the lawsuits show. So, that'll churn. Of more interest is what the Department of Commerce is considering, which are the 232 tariffs. And this would be 232 tariffs on steel and aluminum content of a bicycle, and also of an e-bike at 250 watts or below, Michael, not up to the 750 in the CPSC definition. So it's an odd application of e-bikes with motors of 250 watts or less, but so be it. That's the way it's been put together. That is still pending. And that would have added, or will add, a 50% tariff to the value of steel or aluminum in the content of an imported bicycle. Very difficult to calculate, but nonetheless is going to have to be calculated if this goes into effect. Now, this is a decision by the Secretary of Commerce, and it would add up to 50% ad valorem tariff on the componentry if it's of steel or aluminum content, and they'll specify what the percentage of that is. All of this is confusing, will create more uncertainty. The next window, and we've got to pin this down, but the next window that we've been told since we've gone through the month of the window that was available to implement this in January, the next window will be in May.
Okay.
But, and that'll be between the 1st and the 14th, the first 2 weeks. I'm going to attempt to find out more about what this means from when can they do it. But this simply hangs over our heads. This is what's been referred to in the trade press as devastating. And I could also say it's going to add to the confusion to the point where the uncertainty is going to be expanded. As the economists say, radical uncertainty that we really can't analyze. There's no statistical analysis of a radical uncertainty. So that's hanging on here, hanging over the industry, along with the confusion of things like every country that does business with Iran is going to be hit with 25% tariff. The largest country doing business with Iran at this point is China, where we already have huge tariffs applied. What does this mean? Will it happen? No details. So we'll have to wait until details are available. The latest is a threatened tariff of an unknown amount at this point, this morning, for any country that's objecting to the United States taking over Greenland.
Boy.
So,
no.
And I mentioned that only because it's in the headlines. It's a threatened tariff.
That has to be made up, Jay. Like, that can't be true.
I wish it was. But that gives you an idea of the confusion that's being caused. And, looking at, well, what does that mean? Without details, without it actually happening. Now, in one case, what's been said about Iran has been articulated in the form of a tariff amount, but no other detail. This other latest thing this morning, no amounts have been given, just the threat of a tariff for any country. So it's really difficult to plan.
Yeah.
And that's part of the issue we're dealing with. To give you an idea of the impact of tariffs, and again, Steve and I were involved for many years in importing products. So we know that tariffs were baked into the FOB costs, or on the FOB cost, baked into the landed cost of goods. But what's happened here is these higher tariffs that are being charged are affecting spreadsheets. They affect cash flow. This is liquidity. And so the way that you typically would buy imported product in large amounts, container loads of bicycles, are letters of credit. If you've got good credit, you can get a delayed LC, where I could go to the bank and get a Verschwin and get an LC that I didn't have to pay for 90 days. I had plenty of time to get the goods in and put them into the form in the warehouse where they were being sold and turned into cash before I had to pay the cost of the letter of credit to buy them. Well, all of those financial arrangements were thrown up in the air by tariffs, because the 5.5 and 11% or 10% on componentry that was baked into pricing, in the case of China, got thrown up in the air and ended up at a tariff of over 40% on the FOB value. And I have to finance an additional amount because tariffs are due 10 days from the time the product enters the port and the paperwork is filed. And that's cash on the barrelhead. So it's affected cash flows across the industry, which means, companies that were thin from the standpoint of their profit, but also their profitability, became thinner. That's why you've seen bankruptcies of companies, and you've seen brands withdrawing from this market because they no longer can afford the cash flow requirements that are being forced on them by the tariff rates in the marketplace. So they're withdrawing from the U.S. So again, this 2025 was the year of the tariff, and the confusion created continues and is being expanded now almost exponentially. So we're going to see more up in the air conversations, not knowing what to do. This also has triggered more companies that weren't cheating are now trying to cheat on declarations to pay tariffs to see if they get away with it. The fines are humongous. You don't want to do that. And you've got companies that had been doing business in this country, foreign-based businesses doing business in this country, as I said, withdrawing now because they simply don't want to deal with that confusion. Anybody else commenting on tariffs?
Yeah, I mean, Jay, it's a definitely, I was going to ask you about the 232s. There seems to be just a kind of just this continual waiting. Let's see what happens. And there is a lot of confusion right now. And I even see, like, I'm still friends with the Ridley Merckx brands who are Belgium based and, trying to come to the US. And we have brands who have just halted right now, just waiting to see what happens because it's making distribution into the States very challenging.
It's Francis, and I've got a quick question. Have you registered for Summit West yet? Because March 16th is coming up fast. The NBDA Retailer Summit West is happening soon at the Plaza Hotel in Las Vegas, and spots are filling fast. If you want to be in the room where breakthrough strategies are shared, where real challenges get solved, and where meaningful connections happen, it's time to register now. 2 days, 7 focus areas, countless opportunities to learn from the best and network with peers who get it. This is your last chance to join the movement. Registration closes soon, and you don't want to be the store that missed out. Plus, don't forget to book your room at the Plaza Hotel when you register. Head to nbda.com right now. Retailer tickets are $250, with members only paying $200. and you save $25 for each additional person from your team. Don't wait. Register for Retailer Summit West 2026 today at nbda.com. See you in Vegas, March 16th and 17th.
There's another article, though, that did catch my attention, and it did mention tariffs as well. So the Bloomberg report, U.S. job openings declined to lowest level in more than a year. Seeing clear signs that the job market's cooling, fewer openings, slower hiring, just, I think, caution from employers as we're looking at, as we spoke about top of the hour, the operating expenses, the payroll expense. Like, can we staff more people if our sales numbers aren't there? So it's a softening labor market. And I'm just thinking, how should shop owners be thinking about staffing, the wage pressure, maybe even growth planning as we're kind of still in this economic uncertainty? Just thoughts from the team on this. I'd be interested from any of you. Yeah.
Well, I think first, very carefully.
Yeah. That's what we're.
The issue that is occurring here is financially the market's bifurcated. It's split. So you've got big companies, and the stock market's a good example of this. The big six, big technical companies are doing a totally different amount of business and creating a totally different type of profitability in numbers than companies that are below that. And the bike business is all small businesses for the most part. I mean, there are some big brands. Pon is a big international. Bosch is a big international. Shimano. But then when you get to the rest of the business, including and involving most of the bike shops, they're small business. Mm-hmm. They're not doing as well. And this is where you've seen both the layoffs and the job openings or the jobs being dropped off. So the jobs numbers, employment, unemployment, generally, those numbers are being driven by the mids to smalls, not the bigs. So this issue with tariffs that is still very confusing, causing people not to spend money, not to invest, needs to be looked at very carefully relative to staff. So for a dealer, a bike shop, I think this goes with the budgeting. And to Steve's point, and what Fred was saying, is be involved in the detail and making sure that you plan through the staff that will generate revenue. So one of the measures that we need to look at is revenue per employee. Mm-hmm. And we also need to look at the profitability they generate. And you don't want to plan to hire or expand if you don't have the revenue base and the profitability that will support that. Yeah. And if that support goes away in the course of looking at weekly, bi-weekly, monthly progression of the business, you've got to be prepared to let people go. Now, there's a cost to that. So rather than that, I think you up front don't put them on if you don't really think the business can support that additional employee. That's the highest cost that any business has, are the people. Plan the people carefully so that you're not letting people go, so that they're creating the revenue per individual, and they're also creating the profitability.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, Jay, 100%. Yeah, looking at which employees are bringing in the most revenue and, having a plan. Fred, did you want to make some comments too? I feel like this question would be right up your wheelhouse.
Well, I'm torn as I think, this is how bike shops can afford to keep good employees has been an issue forever. Mm-hmm. And now it's getting a little worse because a lot of things are under change. But so one thought was, can you, in your unique business, can you find ways to make structural changes so that you need fewer employees? Mm-hmm. I mean, you want to be fair to people. You want to be able to compensate them fairly. You want to be able to give them job security. But those things don't happen if you're bankrupt. And so the employees have to be a little bit realistic as well as to what's possible. And how do you retain key people is a real issue. And again, back to Scott Galloway, one of his concepts, now it's a non-bike business, but in lieu of compensation or increased compensation, can you find a way to give them equity in the business?
Mm.
I thought this was a little far-fetched, but then I thought, well, wait a minute, Heather, you're a recent chairman of the board. They gave the business over time to employees. It became employee owned. I went to a former NBDA president's website. The owners are three young people listed as equity owners. So maybe if people want a career in the industry, that might be another thing in lieu of just benefits and wage. Is there some way to structure giving them equity in the business? That was an idea I thought was kind of interesting.
I like
Yeah, and I don't want to contradict Jay. I think he's right about layoffs and small to medium business, but there's a trickle down here too. Many of the large phone companies have announced layoffs in the tens of thousands. A lot of the automakers have announced layoffs, particularly with the canceling of the $7,500 tax credit for EVs. I sit in Tennessee, and that's had a big impact here because Ford was putting together with a South Korean company what they called the Blue Oval City, a little bit west of where I'm sitting. And while that hasn't come to a halt, it has slowed down significantly. They were talking about hiring 13,000 people to man this factory, and that's now down to about 4,000 to 5,000. So you've got all of that going. And speaking of Ford, to your point, Fred, in keeping people interested, executive management at Ford said they've got a number of six-figure jobs open that they can't fill.
Wow.
And it's not executives. It's people, it's mechanics, it's people that can do tool making, it's people that can work on the machines in the factories. And so if I'm a bicycle mechanic and I see that in the paper, I'm thinking, maybe there's an opening for me to actually go do something a lot better.
Interesting. I like to hear everyone's perspective because you all bring a unique view to it. So I appreciate that. This next article that captured my attention, I think we'll hear from Mike Fritz on this one too. The Mondak report, Beyond the Checkout, Retail's 2026 Legal Minefield. A really interesting article that really states that 2026 is shaping up to be a major year of change for retailers. New legal and regulatory pressure around product safety, e-mobility, lithium-ion batteries, tariffs, pricing practices. I mean, there's a whole slew of things that are coming down the pipeline that retailers need to know about. So maybe, I know you've all read this article, you talk about all the articles that make it into the reporter. Are there any top compliance or legal changes that retailers might want to be thinking about in 2026, or maybe some big risks? I know we've already been talking about like what is a bicycle and making sure retailers are covered by their insurance companies for what they're selling, but just interested to get the feedback from this group.
Well, I think the first thing before Mike gets into it is this particular newsletter is put together by law firms. So this is the legal perspective. And I think it's very important that it be looked at from that standpoint, that this is the probability and the key issues. I was very surprised to see product liability or product enforcement and product safety at the very top of that list. Mike, I'm sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
No, Jay, I was just going to basically, bolster the opinion of the group here. Quite frankly, I'm surprised. I part of part of my way of making a living is acting as an expert witness. I've got 53 years in the bike industry, a lot of which has been spent designing, developing, manufacturing, sourcing, distributing product. So I know the technology pretty well, and I utilize that knowledge primarily in defending product liability cases against manufacturers and distributors. I got my start doing it for Schwinn. And I'm a little bit surprised, given our experience over the past 5, even 10 years, relative to issues such as lithium-ion battery fires. And now we're into this whole controversy associated with e-bike classifications and usage requirements and licensing and training and communities up in arms because people are riding e-bikes recklessly at high speeds, and they're dangerous at 28 miles an hour, the whole 9 yards. I'm a little bit surprised that there hasn't been a surge in product liability cases associated with injury and property damage associated with some of the issues that we've been living with. But I suspect it's on the horizon. I think maybe one of the reasons, we think about lithium-ion battery fires and the loss of life and loss of property associated with it. I think maybe one of the reasons why we haven't seen an explosion, no pun intended, in product liability cases associated with that is that most of those products manufactured in China. And, China is just beyond the reach of product liability cases in the United States. It's a difficult thing to sue a Chinese manufacturer for injuries that are associated with the products that they've manufactured and sold, especially with respect to the cases, for example, in New York City, where those batteries came from is rarely known. But the point is there have been a lot of safety related issues, and I think it's underlined in this article, and this relative calm before the storm is just that. I'm currently only working one case, and that's unusual. So, but I do believe that again, with the controversy surrounding e-moto bikes, for example, bikes that have got ridiculous speed capabilities and don't come with the requisite safety equipment that's mandated by the various governmental agencies. I think it's on the way. And when we talk about surviving, that a big product liability case for wrongful injury or wrongful death or significant injury, and especially if there's questionable insurance coverage, can break a company in a heartbeat. For example, Rad Power. Rad Power has been sued in a couple of different cases, and these are major cases. Now, I don't pretend to know the details relative to their defense and their ability to withstand those cases, but it's not easy and it's not cheap by any stretch. So again, I do believe in this climate, with the evolution of our bicycle categories, that it's going to be a big problem.
I
Yeah,
was, oh, go ahead, Jay.
no, go ahead, Fred.
I was really surprised the other day when my Facebook feed had a post from my local police department, the Costa Mesa Police Department, about e-bikes. I would have thought, I don't think I'm on their radar, but the algorithm is as the algorithm is. And it occurred to me that, I mean, so they were informing about the three classes, about, at least in this state, under 18, kids are supposed to wear helmets, the legal requirements of e-bikes and illegality or inappropriateness or whatever of e-motos. And I thought, well, that's great, but maybe the police department isn't the most not reliable, but the best resource for e-bike information. It's the dealer.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's a real opportunity to establish yourself as an expert, because you're doing good for the community by letting parents and people that maybe are riding bikes for the first time with an e-bike, they don't really understand the lay of the land. Man, that's an opportunity to build a relationship and really help people improve their safety and understand
You're
what
also
e-bikes are
developing
all
a,
about.
you're also developing a defense strategy.
Oh, there you go.
No, seriously. I mean, imagine a dealer basically delivering an e-bike with no instruction relative to the safety features and responsible riding and whatnot. You've got to imagine that if that customer is injured in some fashion, that you will be more liable than you would be had you done a good job of warning, and relative to the attributes of the product that you're delivering.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
there's so much. Like I just learned on our e-bike panel the other day, and I hate to say this, but here, authentic Heather. I live in New York. Class 3 e-bikes are not legal in New York, right? So outside of the city, right? So we have retailers who might be selling these, advising consumers go on the rec path, and that is not the correct information you should be giving out. I just found out California has a mandatory battery recycling fee that should be collected at the time of every sale of batteries. Do retailers know this? So there's so much coming down the line, or so much that even currently exists when it comes to legality things that retailers should be aware of. The NBDA is doing our best to advise our members and make sure you have all the information, but we're still learning as well. So this is a good
Well,
year.
one of the things that we've been cautioning dealers for some years, in light of the fact that there are published safety standards. Unfortunately, they're not mandatory safety standards, but they're published safety standards, primarily UL 2049. And we've been encouraging our dealers to only sell UL certified product. Because can you imagine a courtroom scenario? And I don't have to imagine it, I've experienced it, where you're sitting on the stand and the plaintiff's attorney is asking, did this product meet all of the applicable safety standards, mandatory or otherwise? And if you have to answer no, what impression does that put in the mind of a juror that is ultimately going to decide how much you have to pay that injured party? So, selling bikes that aren't certified to UL 2849 and 2271 is dangerous, because if somebody gets hurt with it, the fact that it does not comply with an existing standard is de facto liability. So, we got to be careful.
Yeah, and to build on what Mike was talking about in terms of product liability, I wrote an article that was in the Reporter back in November about, do you know what you're selling? And I don't want to regurgitate that, but one of the points I made was, have you talked to your insurance brokers in terms of liability? Are you covered for the products that you're selling? And to Mike's point, if you're not, and you continue to sell those products, you are leaving yourself open to basically being put out of business. So if you haven't talked to your broker, if you haven't looked at your insurance policy, if you haven't asked the questions, am I covered for these things, you are putting your business at risk.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. That was a great article, I remember. And if you're listening, just go on to humanpoweredsolutions.com. You can click into their past white papers, their blog, and you're going to see all those articles. So, Steve, thanks for that reference there.
We are Bivo, a stainless steel cycling water bottle company. The idea for Bivo came from the realization Robbie and I had when our daughter was young. We didn't want to feed her out of plastic bottles, and as we were searching for safe, non-plastic alternatives, we realized that we too use plastic bottles every time we exercised. It was wild for us to realize that metal bottles for cycling didn't exist, so we created one. With a universal cage fit and a high flow rate, Bivo bottles are the go-to bottle for cyclists ready for a cleaner, faster, and a more fun drinking experience.
Let's move on, because we could talk legality all day long, I'm sure. Same with finances. We've got a distribution shakeup. There was the Bike Europe article. Ideal Bikes subsidiary enters the US market as a distributor for Fuji and popular SE bikes. So we're going to see a major shift in how these brands may be distributed in the United States, with Ideal Bike launching PGW USA and moving toward, I love this, a retailer first distribution model. Curious on your opinion and what you think of this move.
Well, I think it starts out that it's counter to the U.S. market situation and the tariff situation causing uncertainty, so brands withdraw.
Mm-hmm.
Ideal, as I don't think many people in the industry know, is the number 3 in size. It's also a public company. Number 3 OEM in Taiwan, with plants in not only China, but also Poland. So they've got a position in the European market, which also means that product could come to the United States under these brand names from Europe as well as Asia. But it's the exception. It's a case where a brand, and we're assuming because of the problems in both the Asian and European market, which are not unlike the U.S., although they don't have the tariff issue, but they do have down markets. They're coming to the U.S. Because they see us as a market, an opportunity to market their products. Now, these are secondary and tertiary brands. These are not top tier brands, but they're staples. They're brands that have been in the bike industry for decades, and they've got a certain consumer following. So that I think is going to be helpful. To me, the excellent and really good news here is they've made a conscious decision, as you said, Heather, to be a dealer brand, dealer first.
Yeah.
And I hope other brands make that decision because, again, the shakeups in the market will continue, and we're going to lose some brands, and having brands that are established coming into the marketplace, I think is important for dealers to be able to have those choices.
Yeah, well, we had our suppliers of excellence meeting just a couple days ago, where the NBDA launched a new program this year where we have our Retailer Excellence Award program. Now we have our Suppliers of Excellence program. And part of that, the suppliers got together on a virtual meeting and shared how they're helping retailers see growth with their brand or their service. And, not just sell in, but sell through, connecting to the community, making sure staff's engaged. And many of the brands on that call said they respect, promote, and put the retailer first, because without the retailer, they're not in business. I mean, the retailer is the one that's keeping them alive, their business alive. So important to remember that 2026, as I'm calling it, the year of the specialty bicycle retailer, and the importance of the retailer. Fred, I thought you were going to chime in, so I'm just interested in your thoughts too.
Well, I think it's great that there's a company moving forward rather than scaling back,
Yeah.
and moving forward with an IBD focus. And they will face the enemy, the marketplace. There's nothing that forces Fuji and SE to be second or third tier brands, because they can go in and earn the business.
Yep.
They can make great products and support their dealers. They don't have to be small for long if they really kick butt. And that's always the challenge, of course. It's not easy to kick butt in bikes.
Yeah, well, I'm calling it also a cultural reset year. We have retailers choosing to do business with brands that support their business. So XYZ brand that's not really stepping up and making programs that are fair for the specialty bicycle retailer, making sure that your representatives are getting into the stores, educating the staff, helping the store connect your brand to the community. You're going to have your business shrunk because specialty bicycle retailers are moving towards brands that do this. So I'm seeing it every day. I'm hearing it from our members. So just a wake up call to the brands and providers out there. Please think about promoting how you work with and making a fair business practice for the specialty bicycle retailer, because they have choices, choices for brands that do respect their business. So I get excited about that one because I'm happy to see that retailers are asking for what they need. And we have to support each other too. So I will say that. Um, any other thoughts here? No.
On this particular topic, it's nice, as you point out, that the retailers now have this additional choice in the market.
Yeah, I agree. I'm excited to see what's coming down the pipeline. I thought this other article was really interested. So we have another retailer, Retail Dive. The article is, in the age of AI, REI is turning to its human employees to win. So we all know REI. The CEO has made it clear that while AI technology, it's reshaping retail, the real competitive advantage will come from trusted, knowledgeable employees who build emotional connections with customers. I love this. This is, I'm trying to harp this to our community and all the emails I write. It's about authenticity, it's about trust, it's about knowledge. So REI calls these employees green vests. And green vests, they're more than just store associates, they're trusted guides on the outdoors. They provide services like backpack fittings. They resonate with customers. And people really love these green vest employees. And it's great that they bring this emotional connection to people. So REI is looking to extend its green vest beyond stores and actually have that same experience captured digitally. So when a customer is visiting their website, they're getting this green vest experience as well. Really interested to hear the Human Powered Solutions take on the green vest strategy, and maybe how we can apply that to our community by specialty bicycle retailers as well.
But I think I'll start with, I think it's a template.
Yeah.
Now, I also would add, just from the standpoint of REI's position and the position of specialty bike retailers, they don't have any other choice. Mm-hmm. It's something that NBDA, you certainly have been advising dealers for several years now to get commerce-enabled websites. Join in the process of doing business online. But this was refreshing to see an REI. Now, REI's had troubles. They've had problems in the market. This very well may be part of the answer because they're not a business that can operate efficiently without the retail associates. That's been their base since they were founded, because that's the nature of the business, especially climbing, especially bicycles, all sorts of specialty outdoor, but it requires the consulting and the consultant in the form of this green vest, as they call it. So I think it's refreshing. I also think it could very well be a template that we can learn in the specialty bike retail trade a great deal from.
Yeah, I find the experience in various REIs is very consistent. The employees may not be the master of everything, but they're pretty good. And the most important thing they do, which I think all salespeople should do, is they lead with questions. They ask questions. They have knowledge, but they only start spewing it when asked, and I think this is all trainable. I think the consistency of employees and a management that can watch these interactions and offer correction and advice. This is one of our opportunities, sort of like a physical store. The people in the store are our advantage in the marketplace, and boy, take advantage of that, make and maximize that, because people, I've seen studies that people aren't really happy with AI. Mm-hmm. So I'll tell you, just because it's kind of funny, I got in an argument with AI the other day. I was doing a Google search for something, but I hit the wrong button and it started talking to me. And I said, "Why are you talking to me?" And he said, "Well, I'm your virtual assistant. I'm here to help." I said, "I didn't ask you for help." And so we went back and forth. Why are you pretending to be a person? You're not even a person. What if I unplugged you and you had no electricity? And the answer was classic. "Oh, I don't need electricity. I'm an algorithm." So AI has a long ways to go before it can really compete with a motivated, highly trained, and actual Homo sapien.
Read the term curmudgeon comes to mind.
Yeah.
Well,
Oh my gosh,
maybe.
I love that. Heard it here first.
That's classic.
A couple things I want to cover before we are kind of at the top of the hour here. Mike, anything when it comes to any updates for us when it comes to e-bikes, product safety, compliance, anything that we should know about our listeners?
Obviously we spend a lot of time talking about battery safety. There's been a lot of recent developments in terms of commercialization of the solid state lithium-ion battery technology that I've talked about so much. So better batteries are on the horizon. So I think as that continues to proliferate in the market, it's going to help alleviate one of the big issues that we've suffered from with the huge adoption of e-bikes and whatnot. Which is not to say don't continue to be careful. All of the warnings and cautions and advice that we've offered before is still relevant, but there is a light at the tunnel, and I don't think it's a freight train. So, and then obviously the other things that we alluded to earlier was all the controversy associated with classification and out of class products and performance attributes, et cetera, et cetera. Buy certified products, sell certified products. It's the best you can do for your shop. It's the best you can do for our industry.
I like that. All right, thanks, Mike. Yeah. Maybe Fred, from where you're sitting, 2026, here we are. What do you think when you're looking at how retailers might be doing, and if you were a retailer or advising the community, some high level things you might be prioritizing?
Well, I think, at least for me, there's a key difference between national trends and your local and regional marketplace.
Mm-hmm.
And it's easy, and I do this from time to time, is to become outraged, being a curmudgeon, by what's going on the national stage,
Oh man.
and but that is so yes, nationally, if you're a national chain, that matters. But are you having all of those problems in your local market exactly as described by the outrage-based media? Probably not. So I'm not saying tune out the media. You have to, stay current on things, but to try to separate out would be my idea. What's going on in your marketplace versus the national story. It's like, yeah, it's a shame when ICE agents are shooting civilians, but did that happen in your town? Is that really enough to get? I mean, yes, it's important and it's good to be concerned about national things, but you're a business, if you're a bike shop, typically that's regional or local, and maybe consider that first.
Excellent. I like that, Fred. Thanks for that. Always lots to learn. Absolutely love the reporter. For our listeners, I just pull out a couple articles for our News Hour podcast, but I highly suggest humanpoweredsolutions.com. Go ahead and read the whole article. Lots of great takeaways, a great analysis that the Human Powered Solutions team does on every single article. I always like to wrap it up with a focus for the coming month. So this is going to air in January. So let's think about February. So our listeners are getting ready for February. Hopefully, if you're a retailer, you've got that budget dialed. You're going to start, paying attention to it more often. But let's get some specific focus for 2026 in each person's words. Maybe Mike, we'll start with you. Just when it comes to e-bike, product safety, anything that you would suggest for our listeners.
I think I've already said it, Heather. We need to be mindful of our responsibility to our customers to buy and sell certified product, to train staff and customers relative to how to use those products safely. Both for their benefit as well as the benefit of our community and our industry. So we can't underplay the importance of safety, especially nowadays. It has to be a first and foremost priority.
Right. So we're not just selling bikes and sending people on their way. We're making sure that we have a role
E-
in ensuring that there's a safe.
Exactly. These are not your grandfather's bicycles. I mean, there's a lot to it from a technology standpoint that can be incredibly beneficial, but also potentially dangerous.
Yeah, and just a reminder, hey, the diligence is on all of us. So if you're not a retailer, if you're a provider, if you're a sales rep, any opportunity you have that we can communicate this, focus on safety to whoever you're having a conversation with, it's all of ours responsibility. So I love that, Mike. Steve, do you want to jump in thinking about February 26th? I mean, you're usually our financial guy. You've got a couple different hats you wear, but what would you?
But just to reiterate what we've talked about and to drive the point home, get your business plan in place,
Yeah.
measure it, make sure it's in a level of detail that makes sense for your business. And the other thing is, and I talked about this a few minutes ago, talk to your insurance broker. Make sure you've got coverage for the product that you're selling. Other than that, and because if you don't, you're going to end up with Mike coming having to try and defend you. And I'm sure that'll work out well, but why go through the problem?
Why go through that process? I like it, Steve. All right, Jay, what about you? What would you think for February
Well,
2020?
for February, I want to take a little different tack. I think that the listeners have to take a look at what's coming up. February 2nd and 3rd, we've got the NBDA P2 workshop, which
Mm-hmm.
I think will be in Schaumburg. Well, it's split. You're actually doing one day at the SRAM headquarters in
Yeah.
Chicago and the next day at Schaumburg, where on February 4th through the 5th, the Cab to Midwest show. And so, if you haven't made plans for the Midwest dealers to go to those shows, do so. And when we do the next podcast, we could talk about the March events.
Yeah, I love it, Jay. Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. That P2 workshop, this is a 2-day workshop, and it's not just for retailers. We can have brands, sales reps, suppliers. Everyone is welcome into that room. I know the Human Powered Solutions team will be in the room, and it's really 2 days of collective thinking on how we can best position your business forward. The benefit for suppliers and providers is that you can hear firsthand from retailers the challenges and the opportunities that you as a supplier or a provider can fill. We're thrilled that SRAM is hosting us day one, which is going to be all about service and opportunities in the service department. And then day two will be over at the convention center. 2 full days, lots of great opportunity. We have space for 60 people. So when this podcast airs, we might have maybe 10 spots left. I know it's been filling up, but if you're interested, you can reach out to me, Heather@NBDA.com. And then the Cavda show is looking absolutely fabulous. Our education lineup is not to miss, and it's free for retailers. So if you haven't signed up, please do that, and we'd love to see you there. Fred, I guess we're over to you. So February 2026 focus, thoughts from Fred?
Well, I'm going to go back to Scott Galloway again, because I just like the way he words things sometimes. I've been long an advocate for expense control at retail. Margins aren't tight enough to be sloppy. The way he puts it is throw nickels around like they're manhole covers. In other words, watch every penny at every time and don't waste anything. You don't have a lot to waste. And then something I also I think he pushed was review every bill and negotiate every bill possible, because your cost of goods, and other bills that you pay, you don't want to get sloppy there. And then something I referenced earlier, if you want to keep labor costs down, try to consider giving equity in lieu of higher wages to keep and retain employees. And then finally, it's just perfect the way he puts some of these things for me. Be all over everything all the time.
Be all over everything all the time. That makes me think, like, I haven't give a call to action for February, so I want to give one to our listeners who are engaged in the Bicycle Retail Podcast. Come get engaged in the NBDA. If you're simply a member that pays dues and you don't take part, you don't show up, we don't see you on virtual events, you're not taking advantage of all of our resources, you're not letting us help your business to the best that we can, because the NBDA, we've assembled an all-star team. We have resources that are deep, that are all designed to help your business. The NBDA has existed since 1946. So many years of building resources for helping specialty bicycle retailers succeed. We want to see you. We want to help your business. Our members who are engaged say that because of our resources, their business has thrived. All NBDA members have a free consultation with Neil Wexler, our bicycle P2 consultant. I just had a member reach out to me today that said that his 30-minute consult with Neil was worth his membership dues in full because of what he gained from that. So if you're a member and you're not taking part and engaging with all the resources, my call to action is please get involved. Please get involved. We want to see you. So gentlemen, thank you for this thoughtful conversation. The bicycle industry, we're always facing challenges, but I truly believe, as we discussed today, there are a lot of levers that we can pull and that we can control that'll help us make our business profitable. We have to stay connected. We have to think about that green vest, how we deliver exceptional customer service. Leave the AI, let Fred deal with the AI, and let's focus on delivering.
I'm done with AI.
Listeners, a reminder, head over to humanpoweredsolutions.com, get that Bicycle Business Reporter, read it every month. It's essential reading. Reach out to the Human Powered Solutions team with your questions, join into the NBDA, participate in the P2 program. Remember, we're all in this together. So however we can best support you, that's what we want to do. Gentlemen, thank you for an excellent podcast. Great to see you. Cheers to 2026, right?
Yep.
Happy New Year.
Thanks for spending time with us on Bicycle Retail Radio. If this episode resonated with you, subscribe and share it with another retailer who could use the insight. Join us every week for new conversations and fresh perspectives to keep you ahead of the curve. The NBDA is constantly creating events, webinars, and resources built specifically for bicycle retailers. Check out what's coming up at NBDA.com. Shout out to Francis Abbott for today's graphics. Interested in sponsoring an episode or know someone we should talk to? Head to NBDA.com. We'd love to hear from you. Until next time.